Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners, and this is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client or would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website biz-smart.co.uk and go to the Smart Room page. Our host joining me today is BizSmart founder Kevin Brent. But before we start the webinar, can I ask you all to use the question mark function on your screen to post any questions that you may have for Kevin, and he'll do his best to answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you, Kevin. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Caroline. So this particular webinar is we're going to go right back and we're going to have a look at core values and defining what our business really stands for. It's absolutely fundamental for gaining focus and ultimately control over your business and to create a successful business in the long run. And it's something that we do at the start of the engagement with almost all of the clients that we work with. And it's the first step to creating a powerful vision for your business. And we're going to look at, over the next 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 of the next webinars that I do, we're going to look at creating this vision, which is a combination, as defined by Jim Collins, of your core ideology and your envisioned future. So the core ideology is what we fundamentally believe in, and and the envisioned future is where we're headed. So core ideology being the kind of forever stuff, your culture, and the envisioned future is a slightly longer term aspiration. Of where you're trying to, is a long-term aspiration of where you're trying to get to. So we're going to start with the core values. Now you may be tempted to think, oh, do I need to really worry about this? You know, I've in the mistaken belief that you need to quickly get to something a bit more tangible and get on with the day job. Well, don't be tempted to skip doing these properly, because certainly in the years that I've worked in business, even though I would have said exactly that at the beginning, you know, I'd have probably somebody come to me and said, let's work on the core values, Kevin. I'd probably have said, oh, well, can we put it off to a bit later because I've got something that I need to get out today. But the longer that I've worked in business and the more businesses that we've worked with, then the more clear that it's become really that those with a really strong set of core values and core purpose are the ones that tend to succeed over time. And it's not that surprising really if you think about it, because even if you just think about people that you know, not necessarily in business, but if you think about people that you know, there will be some that will come to mind that you would say that they're driven, they've got a really strong set of values, standards, and a real sense of direction. But equally, you'll know some people where you probably say, actually, they don't. And it should be fairly clear. I mean, if I were to ask you which ones achieve more success, then it should be pretty obvious. But they're probably also happier people in general. But core values, it's no good just paying lip service to them in a business. It's no good just coming up with some nice words, sticking them on a piece of paper or on a nice framed picture or something and putting them on the wall in reception. We've got to do them properly in the first place, and then we've got to find a way to make those core values live within the organisation. I'll look at that a little bit later on this morning. So you will have seen lots of certainly larger businesses where they literally do have the mission statement and their core values up in reception, which is fine. But communicating it to everybody and making sure that everybody on board and that they live them is what we need. So they have to be incorporated into our everyday work. So here's a great exercise for you to do, and it's one that we do right up front with most of the businesses that we engage with. If you've got somebody else in your business, a partner in your business, or senior managers in your business, this is a great exercise to do as a team. It's one that you can bounce off of each other, and you probably need to allow yourself about an hour to look at the core value, something like that. So it'd be an hour well spent. And ideally, you could do with some flip charts and some Post-it pads, kind of flip charts that we use. You've probably seen those where you can actually tear them off and stick them on the wall, so you can scribble on them on the wall effectively, and you can have them all up together at one time rather than the ones where you just have to turn over the page or fumble around trying to find some blue tack or something like that and mark all the walls. So start off by giving everybody about 15 Post-its and get everybody, including yourself, to write down between 10 and 15 values, one per Post-it. So you've got your 15, and you should do this individually without referral, and allow yourself allow about 5 or 10 minutes to do that part of it. And what we're looking for, sorry, that was my mistake there. What we're looking for is a behaviour or something that we think that as a business that we stand for, and that is fundamental to the way that we do business and the kind of relationships perhaps that we have with our clients. So it's sort of what we're known for and a little bit of what we think we should be known for. So we're only looking for a handful, but as I say, we're going to write these down on the Post-it notes that they define the culture and personality. And it should help everybody in the business also to test those should or shouldn't behaviours. So this is how we should behave, or this is how we shouldn't behave. So if we see this kind of behaviour, then that's not something that we should sanction. So it could be things like treat all customers and staff with respect, or we treat everybody as we would wish to be treated ourselves. And these values sometimes are asked about, is this the same as differentiation? It's not necessarily about what makes you different from competitors, but actually what will probably come out is once you've done the exercise, you will have a unique set of core values. They won't be just words that everybody else would use, because what we'll do is we'll actually define a little bit what they mean. So some of these values that you'll write down may be to do with the internal side of things, to do with how you deal with your staff. A lot of them will be to do with how you deal externally, but many of them will be both. So just to help a little bit more with that, the following questions may just help you to start to think about those rather than just coming up with from a blank sheet of paper or a blank Post-it. So what does your organisation stand for? What do you want to be known for? What do clients say about you? What are you passionate about? What kind of behaviours do you hate? So those sort of things are good starting points. And the value that you put down can be a short phrase. It doesn't have to be a one-worder, because ideally, as I say, they're describing a behaviour, not necessarily just a single word. So that's a good place to start. If you're on your own, if you run a business on your own and you're going to do this exercise on your own, then there is a slightly different way that you could start to approach this, and that is, I heard once a lecture by Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And getting to your fundamental values and how you want to be perceived can be quite tricky. But he said, imagine yourself going to a funeral. You're walking through the churchyard. You're coming in now into the church, and you see people lined up and sat down on both sides of the aisle. You can see the coffin at the end. And you suddenly come to the dawning realization that this is your funeral. This is a very upbeat session, isn't it? And taking certainly the definition of start with the end in mind to the extreme. But you suddenly come to the realization that it is your funeral, and there are 4 people that are doing eulogies, and there's one person from your family, there's one person, one of your friends is doing a eulogy as well. There's one of your business colleagues is doing a eulogy, and then there's somebody else from your community. It might be from your church or from some other organisation that you're a key part of. And the exercise is to imagine what each one of those people is saying about you. And that should give you a really good sense of how you want to be perceived. And that might help you thinking about, if you're doing this exercise on your own, for your business. It might help you to think about how you want to behave in your business, because you're thinking about how you want others to perceive you and what you want them to say about you when the end actually does come, as it were. So, just going back to this now, so we've now gone around, if we are in our group, we've gone around the table, everybody's written down their up to 15 values on a Post-it note. So the next part of this is get each person in turn to stick one of their values, one of their Post-its on the wall and explain what they mean by it. You will find that some people will come up with other ones quite similar, so start to group them as you do it, and you'll see that they'll start to fall into natural groups. Don't engage too much in debate at this point, so this should only take a few minutes, so just get them to put them up and just a brief explanation as to what they mean by what they've written on their Post-it. So, when you've done this, then the next stage is to try and hone these down to between 3 and 5. So this may take a few minutes, but what we're trying to do is to really tease out what they really mean, but hone these down to 3 to 5 core values. It might have been that they've fallen into natural groups anyway, but you're now working as a group to try and whittle these down. So you will have had probably at least 15, but you'll probably have had more. They may have gone into 5 or 6 groups, but what we're trying to do is to really try to whittle these down to 3 to 5 really strong core values, which might encompass a number of variations within that if you've got it in the groups. So now what we've got is that we should have these 5 or 6 really core things, and we also should have a little bit of richness around them because of the slightly different way that people will have described them. So there we go. Now we can put these onto maybe another flip chart, and we can make sure that we've not only just got the core value, but then we go through these questions about, okay, if it's not there already within the other Post-its, what do we really mean by this core value? And then start to think about how do we live this on a day-to-day basis? What does that actually mean to the way that we do business on a daily basis? And to a certain extent, how does this apply to each of our roles? You know, if we say something like, well, we're going to treat everybody with respect, what does that actually mean in the way that maybe the account manager deals with the customers? What does it mean with the marketing person? What does it mean with maybe the HR person? What does it mean if we've got those people within our business? So now, of course, we have to test them, because we want to make sure that they really are robust core values. So Jim Collins has come up with a good set of questions here that will just enable us to simply state whether or not these are strong core values. So they're questions, as you can see on the screen here. So they're like, if you were to start a new organisation, would you build it around this core value, regardless of the industry? Because that then means that it's fundamental to you, not just to the fact that you happen to be in creative design or an electrician or whatever, but it's fundamental. Next, would you want your organisation to continue to stand for this core value way into the future? You know, example of 100 years here, but regardless, is it such a strong core value that it should stay with us effectively forever? Sometimes it may be that core value becomes a competitive disadvantage for a short period of time. It might be that you're certainly might be that actually your quality, the way that you approach things, means that you can't necessarily be the cheapest, and you've got people that are undercutting you or whatever else. So it could be in a way that your price becomes a competitive disadvantage because of you're holding so true to making sure that you deliver the quality to the customer. Well, would you still continue to hold that core value, even if in the short period that looks like it might be a competitive disadvantage? Moving on, do you believe that those who don't share this core value or who breach it consistently don't belong in your organisation? So again, people need to be living these core values, and if they're not, what's you going to do about it? But would you do something about it? Would you personally hold this core value even if you weren't actually rewarded for holding it, because you believe it so much that you don't really need to be rewarded specifically for it? Would you even change jobs before giving up this core value? Now that's more for perhaps for employees, but that is quite important when you're thinking about doing this with your employees, that they need to. This is where that buy-in comes in, because if something is completely at odds, and some people will have a different set of core values. So if somebody's is completely at odds with what you're doing, it doesn't necessarily mean that either you or they are wrong, but it's not going to be a very good fit. So when we start to come to think about how you can live these core values, actually in the recruitment process is going to be one of those, to make sure that right from the start that there is a shared set of core values there. And the last one as well, if you actually manage to exit your business or something at some point, or you wake up suddenly with so much money that you don't need to do your business, would you still apply this? So, what I was talking about, and quite often we do get the question from business owners, as particularly with small businesses, as to are these core values for me or are they core values for my business? Well, you can pretty much see that they're very much the same. They tie in so closely, and when we think about going back to that funeral exercise, why that's so important. So a business owner with a really strong set of those core values, that's how he'll want that culture to run through the business, and ideally he'll be bringing in people with either with those sort of values, or just be so embedded within the culture of the business that that's how the business will grow, and how people will live those core values. So now, if you've ticked all those boxes, then you've got a really strong set of core values. If you weren't sure about a core value in there, then maybe it isn't a core value, and you need to rethink that one a little bit. But you've now got this really strong set of core values. So it's a good idea to document those for now, maybe in a Word document or whatever else. But the way that we do this is we would keep those flip charts that we've now scribbled up and generated around the wall. We'll keep those for the next exercise, because as we go through some of the planning things, it's really good to be able to refer back to those and amend as we go. So, I've mentioned a couple of times that we need to believe in these core values. So it's no good saying we believe in a clean environment and then littering along the way as we go. So we have to live them. So what we need, I'm going to look at just a little bit at some ideas as to how you can consider going on with your team and actually making these live. So let's just flick through here. So 4 key ways probably that you can, there may be some others that you think of, but 4 key ways that you can reinforce your values through your business. So one is certainly in hiring, so in your recruitment and your selection. It's definitely worth including some questions around the core values that you might have, and it's quite easy to build that in once you start to think about it. And equally in your onboarding process, and once they've actually got through and you've hired them and you're taking through an onboarding process, what can you do in that way to make sure that they understand the core values and that they are committed to them and know how they're expected to behave? And therefore, also the next thing in HR management, when it comes to appraisals and things like that, you would want to include core values within there. So again, if I come back to treating everybody as we'd like to be treated, or treating everybody with respect, then you would expect that to be one of the things that they would be appraised against. Clearly, there's the job-specific things, but we're now, we're talking about building this in as well to that. And also you might, if you do recognitions and rewards, these are a good way to reinforce the core values by doing it around the core values. And then communications, certainly easy enough in newsletters, perhaps even things like your website or marketing messages, or even just internal emails. There would be certainly, you would be able to imagine some ways that you could reinforce some of your core values. And then I've put in the execution there, I'm not referring back to the funeral side of things, but actually in the way that you go about the day-to-day business. So some businesses will have quarterly themes, and one way is to reinforce the core values is to have a quarterly theme built around one of the core values. So for this particular quarter, we are really going to focus on superior customer service, for example. Not necessarily the best core value in the world, but superior customer service. So what can we all do this quarter to really reinforce our customer service, and what might we do at the end of it? How do we measure whether we've done that really well, and what might we do at the end of it to reward people if we achieve a certain level? And equally in the execution, in terms of every individual, every employee can also be tasked with thinking about the core values and how they directly apply to their role. And that's a good exercise to do, and gives the daily reinforcement really of it. So I'm going to finish there. I think that's enough on the core values. As I said before, this is viewed sometimes as soft stuff. It isn't soft. Don't think of it that way. It really is important, and got right. A strong set of core values is it's a foundational piece really into setting the strategy and using it to drive the business forwards, as well as creating a really great place for people to work. A business that's got a really cohesive culture about it, that everybody's bought into and lives to, can be a really great place to work. And certainly, core values. Core value could be fun. That would be a really good core value to actually have. That we, while we work hard, we play hard and we have fun. And you could imagine thinking about how you can make sure you build that within the working place. So the next thing that we're going to look at next time, we'll be moving on from this, which is to finish off that core ideology, which will be to look at the core purpose. So that's all for now. Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Kevin, for hosting today's webinar. I will be sending out a copy of the presentation and Kevin's contact details out shortly. So if you do have any questions, please contact him direct. But before we close this webinar, just a quick reminder that this is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. That's the end of today's BizSmart webinar. Thank you all for listening, and we hope you can join us again next time.